Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, a Cadence independent media production. Today we are going down a rabbit hole, another viewer-inspired rabbit hole. I'm talking about how low can you tune your toms? What does it mean to go as low as you can go, and where is the bottom? So toms have huge tuning ranges, regardless of the quality of the drums you have, what they're made of, what heads you're using. There's a range that sounds good, and there are limits to that range for pretty much any drum. And for sure, drums in general in the course of pop music have gone from being tuned medium-ish in big band to being tuned very high in bebop, and then going sort of steadily downward since then. And part of this has to do with production in recording studios and technology that's come along. And also the quality of the instruments has facilitated different degrees of flexibility in tuning. So what we're talking about today is what happens when you're like, I want low, thunderous tom sounds. And I need to make head choices, I need to make tuning choices, and then maybe most importantly, you need to make choices about where this sound is trying to get to, because there's a difference between where your ears are, where the close mics are, and then also where an audience might be and what distance that is if you're not mic'd. And all these variables completely alter the approach to get this kind of behavior out of the drums. Thanks again to our presenting sponsor, ProMark by D'Addario. Today it's Rebound 5A Acorns, which are my current favorite. And what we're going to do today with those is we're going to basically start with these drums where I've tuned them, which is about as low as I would like to tune a 12 and a 16. And then I might take them a little bit lower to just sort of show you what happens as you go really down into the dumps. As with other videos that have come out recently where we've been showcasing specifically like tom behavior and also kick drum behavior, we're close micing the toms today with SM57s, and we have our standard AKG D112 on the kick. Okay, so let's start off with the heads. For low tuning in general, a little more mass to the batter head is a good choice. So we're doing coated G2s on the top, and we're doing sort of the standard clear G1s on the bottom. For low tunings, double ply rezos can also be an option. We have a video from a couple weeks ago that goes into that. And for me, I like the thinner on the bottom for this scenario because we're going to need some help getting tone out of the drum when we're going to take the batter this low. Thing number two is we need to think about the tuning relationship between the two heads. Now, I think that I've been told by people that when they're going for low tunings, they tune both of the heads pretty low, and I think that for me, regardless of whether it's an in-studio situation with close mics or if it's an outdoor live situation, I do still pitch the rezos up a little bit, whether it's like a half step for a larger tom or maybe a minor third for a rack tom. I still feel like a little higher of a pitch on the bottom helps to bring the tone out of the drum, which again, we need help with if we're going to go this low. Now, if you are close micing in a studio and there's going to be processing and compression, then frankly, all bets are off with this stuff. It's basically what's working in that room that day with those mics, and you do need to be ready to make adjustments. You can't say my 12 is a minor third different and my floor tom is a half step different, and that's what's going to happen, because that room might not like that. Those house drums you're using might not like that, or the heads might be a little banged up. So do be ready to make adjustments because it's gonna come up sooner or later. You can't really just have a prescription and run with it. Okay, enough talking. Let's hear what these things sound like in the context with some close mics and a couple of grooves. Okay, so these are tuned pretty low. They're not as low as they could go, but they sound really good right now. They can go lower, but much like a tube amp, if you've ever experimented with guitar amps, when the master volume or whatever, the main volume is turned down super low and the tubes aren't really getting hit with a lot of voltage, there is a bit of a loss of tone, and there's a certain presence when you start to tune it up that just gives it the good sound and a good tone and resonance, and drums are the same way. And so these are about as low as I would want to tune these particular drums in this particular room on this particular day with these heads. Already I know that having a G2 on here, which is a 12, and a G2 on here, which is a 16, there's a little bit of a vibe difference between them. Just because of the diameter, but then having like basically the same thickness of material going on. So this could be one of those times where you're like, I want consistent character, like really consistent character between these two toms. Maybe you do like a G12 here and a G2 down here, or maybe you mix it up a little bit if you're really going after that. My move for this situation is actually to use the same heads, G2, G2, and if the sort of timpani quality of the floor tom is bothering me, a small amount of muffling, just some tape or something like that. If it's a studio situation, I might move to moon gels or possibly a studio ring. But the 12 for me is like right in the pocket. I wouldn't put anything on that. I would leave that guy alone. Let's just do a quick comparison at this tuning with nothing on it, a little bit of tape, and then we'll jump to like an E ring, like a studio ring. So as you can see at this tuning, with just a little bit of mass added to the head, it really modifies the overtones and it can really focus the pitch. And also, this is another example of like, just because you put a ring on here does not mean you need to put a ring up here. Or if you put tape on the 12, you don't have to put tape on the 16. This is just about sound. Is the sound good? Is the sound not good? I've had my own experiences and also teching other people where there's nothing on the rack toms and there is all manner of stuff on the floor tom, just to get them in the same kind of neighborhood, because you're going for pitches or you're going for a general range and you just have to make whatever adjustments get the job done. Your hoops also affect all of this. For me, die cast are the most focused. Triple flange are a little wilder. There's a little more bloom and also less mass, which changes the range of possibilities. And wood hoops, in my experience, are the wildest and the broadest. And in terms of the overtones and things, they just deliver a lot more stuff in the sound, which is why some people in the past I've read would maybe put wood hoops on their snare, but not necessarily on their toms, especially if they're using like a multi-tom setup. That was Akira Jimbo said that. So there's a lot of things that for your particular kit and your situation can affect what is workable and what's not. So now let's leave these where they are, which is rack tom is about a minor third in between, and the floor tom is somewhere between a half step and a whole step between the two. I'm going to just bring the batters down to where they're starting to not activate the shell anymore. And we need to remember that we're trying to activate the shell so that we're getting tone laterally out of the drum and not just up and down out of the heads. Because the audience is over there, they're not up there. So that means that if we're trying to get sound into the room, this goes for room mics, any kind of far field miking scenario too, you're going to want that tone out there. And if it's not getting there, there's just less in those microphones that's usable, and the audience isn't really hearing the full sort of tone out of your instrument. right, so this is also a good sounding tuning. It's very low, the smack on the heads is delightful, and the sensation right here is a little cleaner because there's a lot less sustain out of everything. It's very short sounds, it's very punchy, but also over there's not a lot of tone coming out of the drums. Right here, especially under these mics, there is some fatness, and this basically just goes to this idea that, again, if you're mic'd and if you're close mic'd, you can kind of try anything and see what works, especially if you're dealing with, a multi-tom setup, or if you're trying to go for something unusual, or just, I don't know, trying to find some kind of signature tone for a certain song. As long as it sounds good at the place that it needs to sound good, do whatever you need to do. In the case of this sort of tuning, I might go after something like this where I know that I'm close mic'd and I know that the drums are going to be, at the very least, compressed, if not also EQ'd. It may also be a situation where you're going to be playing a lot of really fast material on the toms, so having a lot of bloom out of the toms is a problem. And you can chase that with muffling, with the old tuning, or you can go lower for this sort of scenario. You will destroy the heads faster, as we also have talked about in a recent video, down in this range, and doubly so if you're using round tips or if you're using just generally beefy sticks and really throttling the toms, because there isn't that resonance from the shell and the heads and everything to kind of take that and throw it back out again. The summation of this whole thing is you need to know where your tone needs to get to, and you need to make choices. Needs a weird word, but you should make choices about where the listener is, whether it's you by yourself, or is it these microphones, is it some audience out there, is there mics and also an audience, and all these result in a sound that works where you are and also works at the receiving end of the performance. This goes for kick drums, snare drums, everything. We always talk about this, that A, try anything, because who knows what you're going to find, but B, understand that there's a goal when you're tuning your drums and playing them, and don't forget to keep that in mind. So thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that little notification button so you find out about our new videos. Thanks again to ProMark by D'Addario as our presenting sponsor. And do let us know about your extreme tunings, or if you're just a middle-of-the-road kind of person. And also, actually, I'm curious what styles of music you might use this sort of tuning for in your own life, or times that it has absolutely been a problem, where, maybe a backline kit or something. But let us know, and we'll see you soon.